All right, good morning, everyone. This is June 19, 2025. The class is ELEC 1013, Network Cabling, Fanshawe College, London, Ontario. All right, here's the and enter Bach with the punch. Um, all right. So the last time we looked at as I call it, conventional telephone systems. And this is my term, as I say, conventional versus, I had to call it something. So I would say conventional versus VoIP. And by what I say, with what I mean by saying conventional phone systems is basically a KSU, or something that's called Key Service Unit, or PBX, all right? Which stands for Private Branch Exchange, and that is usually as I say, a box that where's my board here? So here would be a building, all right. Crooked wall here. Here is a building with a bunch of offices, maybe production line, and here's the thing here, here's the thing. And now let's say here's a demarc point somewhere here. Okay. Let's just make things neat. All right. So here would be the demarc point or demarcation point, which basically translates into a point of entry. So all the telephone lines from the city, all right, are coming in and they're entering here. Over here, there's going to be usually something that is called a PBX, PBX, or KSU. Sounds like a good punk rock band name, right? If you hold the shift, drawing the line. Oh, thank you. Let me try. If I hold the shift and draw a line, it's going to be straight line. Whoa. All right, cool. Thank you. Photoshop 101. Thank you very much. You learn every day something new. Uh, thank you, Robert. Uh, okay, cool. The PBX or KSU, all right? PBX stands for Private Branch Exchange. Well, somewhere there where those utility poles, there is going to be something like somewhere in the city, there's going to be CO. And from CO, central office, there will be lines. Let's say the client ordered 50 telephone lines or whatever, 20 telephone lines, 10 telephone lines to accommodate the number of people that are employed. And with the calculation of how many people are possibly going to use an outside connection at the same time, a good compromise for the money is being solved, is established. So if money was no object, like if the telephone lines were free, if you employ 20 people, you would get 20 telephone lines, because this way, if everybody wants to use the telephone line at the same time, then you get a problem. But usually that doesn't happen like that. So that's why we have those telephone systems that are called 616 or 3x8. So 616, 6x16. That means 6 CO lines and 16 extensions. And that's a pretty good balance as far as available telephone lines to make a connection outside, and 16 telephones. It works pretty okay, usually, right? Or 3x8 and so on. Or you can get modular systems that you can just add the lines as you need. But the PBX or KSU. Now, PBX stands for private branch exchange, because the CO is maybe a local branch exchange or branch exchange, but that's from the city central office. But here would be a private branch exchange, which is basically a box that serves as an internal telephone system that basically moves all the traffic, telephone traffic in and out, and between the clients. I mean, in between the clients, as far as between the clients that are inside. So you can call one person, call another office. That doesn't involve using an external line. It just goes through that box, which is PBX or KSU. Now, usually, excuse me, let me get a sip of coffee so I usually, but it's not a rule set in stone. However, usually when somebody is referring to KSU as key service unit, usually that refers to a medium to small type of a telephone system. You're talking 16 extensions, 20 extensions, maybe 25 extensions, and something like that. KSU. Now, if you are talking about PBX, private branch exchange, then usually that thing is referred to as a bigger telephone system that accommodates maybe 800 telephones, 1,200 telephones, or whatnot. And that would be not a box on the wall, but it would be a whole room of all the wires coming in and all the processing units and all that stuff. And that would be something like in the hospital or a big government building or something like that. So that would be PBX, private branch exchange. Usually the PBX is the bigger and KSU, key service unit, is smaller. I'm not going to test you on that. I just want you to know that. However, if you say one instead of the other, nobody's crown is going to fall off their head. It's a saying. Not a big deal. I just want you to know that there's a tendency of naming those processing units. And the conventional phone system uses the CO lines or central office lines to provide the telephone communication into the building. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is VoIP, which is the voice over IP, which is still telephony, but it's using internet. So, I'm just going to maybe choose a different color here. Something like, let me get a good red color here. Let's say you're going to have, okay, yeah. Ooh, I'm drawing straight lines now with the shift key. Here's another room. And instead of the conventional, we're going to have the VoIP telephone systems. Now, this would be a LAN room, local area network, where all the computer equipment goes. So over here, you might get one fiber. Fiber or fiber, the spelling is interchangeably used everywhere. So you will see me using different spellings. Now, a fiber, internet brought by a fiber or by cable, which will be the coaxial cable, it does have a bandwidth. And the bandwidth will have from some lower and to some higher, and some of the bandwidth is going to be used maybe by the internet, whichever this thing is being used. So here's the internet, and maybe part of the bandwidth is going to be used for voice, which is the telephone. So you still have one connection. Now, I'm not going to get into how many fiber strands you're going to get or whatever. It's a fiber connection, provides internet. And part of the bandwidth that is available for whatever the company is going to be used for the voice communication. And depending on how much bandwidth you want to designate, it's going to be enough bandwidth to accommodate whatever number of telephone lines. So if you want 20 telephone lines, you're going to have some bandwidth. Maybe you want to have 150 lines, then you're going to maybe increase the bandwidth. So this area here is greater. Okay. So the human hearing range is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Now, when it comes to human hearing range, we never go as far as 20 kilohertz well, maybe some of the piano tuners that have exceptional hearing. Then would they go to maybe that end? But usually we stop hearing things at around 17 kilohertz or something like that. Now, we don't need the whole bandwidth to carry our voice. So the original telephone lines, they would have a very narrow bandwidth, just so you understand what's being said to you, so the communication is understandable, so you can say the message. And so that's why when the bandwidth was chopped or narrowed, that's why some of the telephone conversations would sound like this, because you wouldn't get the full benefit of the full bandwidth, and that was enough to communicate. The problem was that later, when the fax machines were introduced, some of the bandwidth was not enough to carry the frequencies transmitted by the fax. So the circuitry was upgraded to cover better bandwidth range. So then by the same time, the voice communication has improved, so you can actually tell that whether somebody is talking to you, it's a man or a woman, or a child or an adult, or you can actually tell who it is that is talking to you. Before you couldn't. You would just, it was. I'm not sure if you can. Well, it sounded like somebody talking 3 hours like that, right? So. Now, as far as here's something fun on the topic, telephone history before they figured out how to. Yeah, I'll take a look at that. Nice, thank you. Yeah, that might be interesting. So, what happens is that part of that is being used to create something that's called a SIP. SIP lines. Now, there's no rule that what kind of a bandwidth from what to what, as far as there could be some guidelines, but you can tell that sometimes when somebody's calling you from some kind of a calling center, or when you're calling for a technical support or something like that, some of the conversations are better than others. Then you can have more comfort talking. It's because sometimes they narrow the bandwidth just to the minimum so you can carry the voice, but sometimes you're going to hear some sort of aliasing that sound like maybe a badly programmed robot in some moments. So that's why if somebody wants to cheap out on the bandwidth, so they will do that. And some of the social media, like for example, there's WhatsApp, or there's Messenger on Facebook. You can probably tell the difference just between these two, but there's some other ones. So you might find that as far as telephone or voice conversation, you might find that some of them are more comfortable to use than others. Okay? So that's as far as the SIP line. SIP line stands for Session Initiation Protocol. Now, what's a session? If you have a PC somewhere on your desktop, and you want to Google something about any topic, let's say giraffes. Okay? So you fire up your browser and click on, let's say, Google. Already a session is established between your PC and whatever server in the area, far or near, is that has a Google server on it. Then you're establishing the server between your PC and that server. So session is established. Session, you can translate that into a connection is established. But because the VoIP uses SIP lines, which are part of the bandwidth provided by the internet, so you're just connecting your phone just as a PC would connect to a server. You're connecting your phone to some sort of a server. So you're establishing a session. So the lines, instead of CO lines, CO1, CO2, and so on, and each of them would have a number, particular number or designated number, telephone number. Same with the SIP lines. But the SIP lines are not physical lines. It's just a part of the bandwidth that is already provided to you by the internet provider. You're just using some of the bandwidth of that. And those lines also have telephone numbers. So to an end user, there's no difference. Pick up the handset, dial the number, and talk. But what's going behind the scenes is some, quite a different thing. Right? So if you want to have more lines, with the CO lines, you need to run and physically connect more telephone lines. With the VoIP, you just increase the bandwidth and you just pay more for more lines. That's one of the benefits of you're using already something that you have connected internet provider, and part of the internet that is provided to you, you're using for designating for the telephone conversations by having or purchasing SIP lines, session initiation protocol lines. All right. So that's one thing that is different. Okay, let's just take a look at the VoIP. Now that's basically what most of the VoIP telephones look like. Right? VoIP, what does it stand for? Voice over Internet Protocol, VoIP. The concept is, here's the concept. Private branch exchange is a telephone system installed locally. That's what we were just talking about in the last 15 or so minutes. Private branch exchange is a telephone system installed locally as a system that serves a closed facility, usually in a commercial environment such as office building or a production plant and such. The purpose of the PBX is to provide locally distributed telephone sets to individual clients in a way that the users can. For example, call each other internally without the need of outside lines. So you can dial somebody's extension and have a communication between the one and the other telephone within the building without selecting the outside lines. These are called internal calls. Perform audio paging. We covered that over the few lessons. Use the telephone sets to communicate with the outside world. So this could be outside calls. Receive outside calls as directed by, now those outside calls that are coming in can be directed by the reception operator as a human or automated routing system, half and half. I prefer to talk to a human if somebody answers, but you call some kind of a drugstore or something like that, then they make you listen to some whatever the announcements that they that they want to give you before they pick up the phone. What others can they use? The system designated voicemail, right? Transfer calls to other users. Some of the features make conference calls and use and benefit from any other local enabled systems features. So there's much more. But those are the basic ones. VoIP versus the conventional PBX, and this is what I basically talked to you, but let's just recap on that. Now, definitions. PBX stands for Private Branch Exchange, which is a box inside the building that serves as a telephone system. CO line, central office, and these are for the POTS lines. Now, here's definitions. What's VPN? VPN is a virtual private network. Virtual private network, VPN, is a chunk of the internet that is secured for your private use. You buy that chunk of the internet, and it's a private channel. Only you can use it, and whoever is logging into that virtual private network, it's just like having a local area network, but over the internet. So it can't be called local area network anymore. But that it's a secure connection. So any of the big chains, Walmart, Home Depot, any of the fast food chains, McDonald's, Burger King, or whatever else I want to mention them all. They use VPN. So basically, all the cash registers are logged onto the VPN, virtual private network, which is connected somewhere to some central server or whatever. So in any chain, like a variety store chain, you buy a chewing gum, and that thing is registered through the VPN onto some sort of a main server. Okay? Now, SIP lines, session initiation protocol lines, we talked about that. Primary rate interface, we also talked about that. Okay, but if you need to make some more clarifications, you can. Maybe in some of the classes during the in-person classes, maybe you can ask some questions if you're not sure, if you're interested in that. Now, SIP lines is a standard. SIP is a standard protocol for the internet-based communication, including telephony, video, messaging, and conferencing. SIP trunking makes it possible to connect PBX to the internet. What is a trunk? A trunk is a lot of connections in one cable. So, for example, in the old days, or originally, when there was a huge city central office exchange, you would say this trunk services London East. There will be a bunch of lines bundled in one cable, and it will be called a trunk. The other trunk, this is a trunk that serves London West, and so on. So SIP line can be also trunked. SIP trunking makes it possible to connect PBX to the internet, enabling business communication without use of the PRI lines. This might not be as clear to you as it should be right now, but just bear with me through this to this conversation. Now, presentation. I should slow down. Conventional PBX versus VoIP. Okay. Conventional PBX will have locally distributed telephone sets, and so does the VoIP telephone system. Because that's the whole idea, to have telephone sets on people's desks so people can use their phones. Now, let's take another step here. Internal calls within local facility. Oh, this is a bit longer here. Let's see what this one says. Internal calls within the local facility and other facilities within a common VPN. Ooh, that's huge. That's huge. We'll talk about that in the next couple of slides. What does this mean? This means that within the conventional PBX, let's say there is a factory. Cover my microphone with my hands here. Sorry. Let's say there's a chain of some sort of huge corporation, and they have a plant in London, they have a plant in Windsor, they have a plant in Sarnia, and they have a plant in China. Okay. So if you want to make a phone call within the same building, you would make something that's called internal call without the need of selecting an outside line. Okay. But if you want to call the same plant with another city, then yes, you have to select an outside line, CO line. and select the long distance, then you would use a long distance phone call because city to city would be long distance, or even longer distance is will also be called long distance if you want to call the plant, the facility that belongs to you, but it's a different building and it's in China. So there will be international long distance calls. Here, if you take, because all the telephone sets are connected to the network, and if the network logs in to the VPN, virtual private network, that all those plants, including the one in China, belong to the same VPN, virtual private network, then all the calls within the VPN are treated as internal calls, no long distance anymore. So it's just like dialing. There's no difference between dialing the guy who sits in the cubicle next to you or the guy who sits in the cubicle in the office in China, if you belong to the same virtual private network. Huge savings, money savings on that. All right, so for conventional PBX, conventional CO, central office lines, to dial out are being used. Now, with the VoIP, SIP lines are being used to communicate with the outside world. All right, now, the last one here. For the conventional PBX, it's a locally installed PBX equipment. There is a physical box that hangs on the wall or stands on the floor or whatever, but it's a physical box, excuse me. Sorry. That's it. There's a phone system that's installed somewhere in the basement or maybe some communications room or whatever. Now, for the VoIP, you can have a box that is locally installed, but it is connected to the network, and through the network is connected to the internet. And all the phones are connected also to the network, but through the network are connected to the box that lives in that building. Or you can use something that's called a hosted routing or routing, depending on where you are, which there is no box anymore. All the phones connect to the network, and there could be a company that provides the hosting. And that company can be anywhere. Could be in a different town, could be in a different country that provides the hosting, because all they have to do is have all that server-like equipment or telephone system-like equipment that has all the extension numbers logged in, all the permissions and restrictions and phone numbers and the whole information, the whole database that has to do with the phone system for that particular facility. And all that company has to do is log into the same VPN. So that can be anywhere. So you don't have a box anymore, but you purchase a hosted kind of a VPN. Sometimes, depending on the setup, size of the facility, and whatever else, sometimes it's more economical or more convenient to use the locally installed PBX that is VoIP based. And sometimes it is better to use the hosted routing, depending on the deal you get and the situation you are in. Usually the huge facilities, they would use hosted routing. So let's say the hosted routing is in Montreal. You want to call the guy that sits in the cubicle next to you. The phone call goes through Montreal, comes back to the cubicle next door, next to you. All right, that's how you get connected. But if you want to call the same company that is logged into the same VPN in China, again, that phone call goes to Montreal. From Montreal goes to the to China's office, and so on. So within the same VPN, there's no long distance charges. That's huge cost saving. A lot of the companies, they're still going on. A lot of the companies, most of the big ones already switched to VoIP, However, there's still some battlefield ground to cover. But that's basically when there's a new company established or new building being built. The VoIP is it. Right? Now, remember what do they say here? SIP trunking, which is bundling of the SIP lines. SIP trunking makes it possible to connect to a PBX to internet, enabling communications without the use of PRI lines. Primary rate interface, PRI. One physical line, which, well, I don't want to lie to you, it's actually 4 conductors, 2 pairs. One is transmit, one is receive, which is which, depending on the end you're standing on. Now, that one line or connection consisting of 2 pairs can serve up to 30 simultaneous phone calls for the PRI, for the T1. It's an end-to-end digital circuit, so it's just like the almost like the Ethernet type of a cable, but it just goes much further. Basically, what it is the telephone conversations are multiplexed, modulated into different channels, and those channels are transmitted through those 2 pairs. And on one end, it has to be modulated into those 2 pairs. And if you want to receive one-to-one conversations, you just have to demodulate that on the other end. It's an end-to-end digital circuit. One PRI line consists of 2 copper pairs, transmit and receive. A modem is required to modulate and demodulate. Modulate, demodulate, modem. Okay. Multiplexing is used to carry multiple channels over the one line, which consists of 2 pairs. Each PRI channel bandwidth is about 64 kilobits per second. Remember when we're talking about the speed or the data transfer, we're talking about bits per second. And if we're talking about storage, right, the hard drive storage, then we're talking about bytes, and there is no per second, just on the sideline. Okay? Now, let's see here what else. 2 common PRI types, E1 and T1. E1 can serve about 30 channels, which means about 30 simultaneous telephone conversations, and mostly used in Europe and in India. And there's a T1 interface or T1 PRI that can carry 23 or 24 channels, which is less than E1. And it's mostly implemented in North America. That's what PRI modem looks like right here. The line is coming from outside. It's a digital circuit, just like Ethernet, but not. And from the other side of the modem, things are fanned out into the BICs. So you can connect each individual telephone line to wherever you want to connect it to, via PBX. That's what it looks like. There's one modem for T1. There's another modem for T1. So over here will be about 23, to be on the safe side. There's about 23 lines, and there's about 23 lines. And here's 100 lines just by the pots. There's 100 line, 100 pair, telephone cable. 100 pair cable, which is, remember, when we did the lab, it's 4 of those 25 pairs. Local PBX versus hosted routing. Local PBX, a physical hardware placed in the facility. That's it. That's the phone system. All telephone connections home run to the cross connect point, which is the BICS. Usually it will be the BICS platform that we connected we connected the 25 pair cable to. We're going to do some more with that in the next few labs. All telephone sets connect to the computer network and then interface with the local PBX. All telephone sets connect to the computer network and then interfaced with, okay, so local PBX, man, I wrote that and I have to decipher that now, wow. Local PBX, that goes with the VoIP or conventional. So the local telephone sets, they can connect to the computer network or they can connect to the straight to the PBX. But if it's connected to the PBX, then that thing is connected to the network, or the telephones can be connected to the network, and that PBX can also have a connection to the network, depending on the setup. All system connections are connected to the PBX directly or through a computer network. All system connections, including telephone sets, ATA adapters, and whatnot. Now, internal calls are routed through the local PBX. Outside calls are routed through the CO lines or through the SIP lines through the local PBX. Now, there's the hosted routing. No locally installed PBX on site, no box. Everything connects to the network, and network connects to the internet. That's it. All telephone sets are connected to the computer network. All calls are routed through the hosting client, which I explained to you a couple of slides ago. The hosting client hardware can be installed locally or anywhere in the world. Connections to the hosting client are established through the VPN, virtual private network, which is a private chunk of the internet available only to you or whoever else logs in. All connections between the end users are treated as internal calls within the same VPN. So if the company if you have a company in Switzerland, one of the offices in Switzerland and the other offices here in Canada, if they both log in to the VPN, then even if you call another country, it's considered a local call or internal call, as a matter of fact. Okay. So no long distance charges. This means that the call between London, Ontario, and Hong Kong is treated as an internal call if within the same VPN. All right. How are things being connected? Is that the last slide? No. All right. Here is the patch panel into which the phones plug in. Well, the phones plug in to the wall outlet. The wall outlet is connected to the patch panel, and that's it. From the patch panel, things are one-to-one based, patched into the switch, and the switch is patched further to the network. Router, gateway, whatnot, modem, okay? That's it. You take the phone, plug into the wall, into the network, that's all. Now, as far as the IT setup, well, it's a different story. But if you're installing just that, all you care about is connecting that, making sure that this connection is good, making sure that the switch has a PoE, power over Ethernet, because some of the network switches are capable of PoE and some of them are not. PoE stands for power over Ethernet, which means that the signal, the Ethernet cable carries the data signal. And on top of that, there is a DC power, usually 48 volts, but there are some different PoEs that employ different voltages. So the specs have to be reviewed before you're installing in the system. So some of the switches have PoE on all the connections. Some of the switches have no PoE whatsoever, and some of the switches will have only PoE on maybe the first 16 or first 8 ports. So you have to, whenever you're buying the switch, or you got to spec things out. Connections topology. You can have a dedicated line to a VoIP, but here's the thing. When trying to sell the product, you need to make it as convenient to the client as possible to make the decision to kind of write you the big check. The more convenient things are, the more likely you're going to get the sell. So the product. This is not very convenient, because if you have a bunch of offices with only one Ethernet connection, then you're going to need to run more wires to the office. And if it's a huge office, then it's becoming a big job. So the phone people who produce the phone, they come up with a solution. You can have 2 jacks on the phone, and you can go into the phone and then out of the phone to the PC. Just put that in line with the PC. A lot of the big companies, big hardware stores, or big stores, that's where the POSs look like, point of sale stations. There's a VoIP telephone, and that VoIP telephone is plugged into the network, and from the then from the phone, there's a connection to the cash register, which is basically a PC with a money drawer and maybe a little bit of different keypad, a little different display. That's what it looks like here. You would have things that they'll be labeled, right? So you say to the network and to PC, or maybe some kind of icons that one looks like a computer and the other one looks like a telephone kind of a thing. Of course, you're going to have to look at you have to look at the specifications, but usually those VoIP phones have input and output, and there's some other for headsets and stuff like that. Now, this also has the AC or DC power supply. If you're not having a PoE connection from the switch, then you can plug it into the wall to make it work. But usually people don't want to bother with that, so PoE is the way to go. Other connections. Well, we still have to have a PA system in the big facilities. We just have to. And let's say you have an existing PA system going on. You're switching the client from the conventional phone system into the VoIP. But they already have a PA system established with all the speakers installed and amplifiers and paging interface. And you see, paging interface is accepting POTS line signal. Well, how convenient it really is, because all you have to do to interface already existing paging system, here's the paging interface that's already existing, that was connected to the other phone system. You just disconnect that phone system from this PI, paging interface, and plug in to the ATA adapter, analog telephone adapter, that is provided by the new phone system. What's an ATA adapter? What does it do? To the PBX equipment, local or hosted, that box is seen as a telephone. It's pretending to be a telephone set. In fact, it has all the telephone set features, except it's just a box. Doesn't have a handset, doesn't have a display, nothing, but all the circuitry is there. You can plug in a single line telephone set, the one that you just buy at a local hardware store for $9 or whatever, and you can still use it. You pick up that thing that's as a phone. It's going to give you a dial tone. You can dial extension. Only thing is that you're not going to be able to press a button for some features like paging or others, some like conferencing or something like that. You just have to enter a sequence of numbers to trigger some of the features. So, but usually those phones are not used for that purpose. Or you can take the output, the POTS line, and connect it to the POTS input of the paging interface, and you're interfaced. You're connected to the PA system. What happens? You dial it because it's pretending to be a phone, so it's going to have an extension number, usually 4-digit or something like that for the bigger systems. You dial that extension number, this thing is going to make that POTS jack ring. It's going to send the ringing signal to the paging interface. Paging interface is going to sense that ringing tone or ringing signal, and it's going to automatically respond. How it responds is it's going to give you a confirmation tone to, that means you can speak, or is the confirmation tone to let you know that you have to press the zone that you want to page? Is there some additional action? Depends on the setup. And of course, how you set it up, you let the people know who use that, how to use that. So that's how. Now, those can be connected to the door stations. And the door stations, remember, there's, like, I was explaining to you, is it, oh, let's see here. We got a couple minutes here. There you go. Let's say there's a truck entry station. You get another beautiful blue color so we don't get too red here. Let's say there's a truck entrance. There's some gates. Oh, that's without the shift. And there's a truck. There's some gate of the truck, and looking from the top. All right, here's the big trailer, and here is the driver's cab. Okay. Now on the stick right here is going to be something that's called a door station with the push button. So the truck driver just pushes the button here, and it's a hot dialer that dials the whatever extension is programmed to. So that hot dialer, or the door station, or the truck driver station, whatever, the push button station, it is connected to the ATA adapter. Forget the paging interface. Go connected to the and then it's connected to the network. So so there's more than one need for having ATA adapter, analog telephone adapter. And remember, those are not being used in the elevator phones, because elevator hot dialers are connected, bypassing everything, going straight to the CO line, not even a SIP line, for the safety purposes. Suggested links. Using a Cisco video phone, you might just want to click on that once you download this presentation, and some other ones that will give you some more idea of what the VoIP system is all about. And I would suggest that you kind of look at some of that, because you can have a business having a residual income installing VoIP telephone systems, right? But I'm not going to say that on the internet how to do this, because YouTube or whatever. I just don't want to do that. But if you talk to me in person, I'll give you some ideas, as I always do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for, oh, this is just too dark. That is it for today. And well, some of you I'm not going to see before the reading week, so just conduct yourself with dignity. All right. And I will see you week after that. Please come back in one piece. All right. Well, peace out, backs out. Have a great week. And I'll see you next week. I'll see you after that.